Hello, everyone. I am Michael. I just moved here this summer from Ontario, and back there, I used to work in film as a stunt performer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liam Mulheron, and I'm born and raised here in Fredericton. And I don't really know what else to say. So, hello.
Hello.
I'll jump in for sure. I'm Kat Hall. I'm primarily a theater artist here in town, but I've been itching to do some more film. One of the only projects I've ever actually done was actually directed by Britany. And
You were in a zombie movie.
it was exactly.
It was lovely.
I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Gerard Bork, and I'm a retired French language teacher from Campbell Island Consolidated School. And I'm currently working as an interpreter, a bilingual tour guide at Roosevelt Campbell International Park.
Very cool.
There. And my acting experience has mostly been on the stage, so I have very little film experience. So, but I have done some background acting, a little bit of background acting in a feature film and also on the television Netflix series Frontier.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Well, it is 7:04, so I think I'm gonna start because I have a lot to say. I'm going to ask while I'm talking, if you have questions, that's great, but put them in the chat so that I can answer them when I'm not in the middle of a sentence. I get very distracted when I'm talking sometimes, so put the questions in the chat, and then I'll have an actual question and answer afterwards. But yeah, so I'm going to share my screen so that you can all see my slideshow. So, is that good? Everyone see it?
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, good. All right, so I have titled this workshop, Set Etiquette for the Indie Filmmaker, All the Things You Ought to Know That No One Thought to Tell You. Because I feel like there are many things that I've learned over the years that were not, when you start taking classes about how to make a film, you learn about the 180 rule and how different lenses work and how to frame a frame and where to put your actors and all of these things. But there's all kinds of little things that you just kind of learn as you go. And if somebody tells you them before you start, then you will make a lot less mistakes. Because I've made a lot of mistakes over my years of making films. So these are some things that I wish somebody had told me when I started. So first off, about me. So in case some of you I think know me, but some of you don't. So I will introduce myself. So my name is Britany Sparrow. I am originally from British Columbia. I moved to Fredericton in 2004, and I went to UNB. I studied English, creative writing, and film with Tony Merzetti was one of my teachers. And I've decided that at that point that filmmaking was what I wanted to do, and so I've been making films ever since. I've directed 9 short films, and I've worked on, it says 77 as of December 2020, and I don't think I've worked on any since then. But yeah, at least 77 projects. I'm also the president of the Film Co-op, and I'm married to my sound editor. That's a bit of advice. If you're the marrying type, marry an editor. It makes everything easier. And I'm a cat mom, as you all saw my cat earlier. I'm a gamer, and I work at the Provincial Archives is what I do for a day job. I'm a government records archivist. And and my production company is Sparrow Productions. That's my logo, and that's me and my husband in the picture. All right. So I'm going to start, first of all, why does set etiquette matter? Film sets always have a carefully constructed plan and a hierarchy to keep things running smoothly. There are so many things that can make a shoot fall behind, and you do not want to be adding to that if you want to keep working. If you are the reason that a shoot is late, people will remember that. And the most important thing is safety. If people are not obeying the guidelines, not listening to what they're supposed to be doing, if they're in places they shouldn't be, people are more likely to get hurt, things are more likely to get broken, and it's just better if you can, you know, stick within the rules so that people don't get hurt. So I've broken this workshop down by category. So I'm going to talk about some of the different departments within a shoot. It's not everything. I'm not going to talk about stunts, because that is not basic filmmaking. That is usually something that's a little more advanced. But I'm going to be talking about some of the key positions, some of the key units within a crew, and then what they some tips about the different departments. So first of all, the director. The director is the creative leader of a shoot. And I always say that a director spends all day making decisions. You decide if the shot looks okay, you decide what the actors are going to wear, you decide what the lights are going to look like, you have final say on everything. So you basically just spend all day making a ton of decisions. The director works closely with the director of photography, the assistant director, and the actors. So I will talk more about those later, but the director of photography is the person that shoots the film, the assistant director is the person that organizes everything, and then the actors are the people that appear in front of the camera. The director is responsible for the entire production, so most of the time with the film co-op, and I guess that's the other thing I'll say, this is primarily approaching it as a New Brunswicker making a film through the New Brunswick Filmmakers Cooperative. A lot of it will apply to other types of productions as well, but that's the type of production that I've always done, so that's what I will be basing most of my experience on. So the director is usually responsible for things like insurance, safety, repairs, consumables. You're supposed to look after your cast and crew and make sure that everybody is happy and safe. That is the director's job first and foremost. There are other people that will look after other parts of that, but the ultimate safety of the whole thing falls on the director. So, advice that I have for directors, especially if you're a first-time director, but all directors, know your limits and work within them. So if you know you have a very, very, very small budget, know that that means that you're probably limited in the number of people that you can have, the number of locations you can do. If you want to do a period piece and you need big expensive wardrobe, that might not be the right move if you don't have the budget to back it up. Also, if you're not experienced with something, it's absolutely okay to say, you know what, I've never done a film that is all stunts or all animation, or I want to have a whole bunch of, like, I want to make a zombie movie and make it all blood and guts and special effects. That's okay, but make sure that you take the time then to learn about it and prepare for it. What are the safety things that will come up? What are the budget things that will come up? What are the time things that will come up? If you have never done, say you want to do some stop motion animation in your film, but you've never done it before, so you think, oh, whatever, this will be easy. And then it takes 15 hours to do it when you had scheduled 2. That's not good planning. So the director should be aware of what your limits are and work within them. Another thing that is probably the most important thing that I've learned, because I'm a director that really enjoys working with actors. That's the most important part um, of my shoot is my relationship with my actors. So don't shout at them. If you have to give them notes or direction, go talk to them. Cross the room and have a conversation with them, especially if it's a really intense scene. If they're trying to be funny and they need to keep a rhythm, or if they're trying to be emotional and they have to. I've been on set with actors where they've had to go to some very hard emotional places to be able to give the performance. And then if you just shout direction at them from across the room, they might lose that. So I learned that from watching other directors direct, and it made so much sense to me. And I've always tried to keep that in mind, because actors are amazing and they will do amazing things for you if you treat them with respect and give them the space that they need. So don't shout at your actors. And the last thing I have, just as a note for the director, is you set the tone for the whole day and the whole shoot. So if you show up late, no one's going to take it seriously. If you panic, and I have panicked on set before, but if you're doing it in front of everybody, they will think, oh, well, if the director is panicking, I should also be panicking. I don't make films to make money. I do films for fun. So to me, I want my sets to feel fun and collaborative, and we're there because we love making movies, and that's the only reason we're there. So that is the tone that I try to project. And if I have to have a moment where I'm worked up or something's not going right, I'll step away from the rest of the crew and have that moment. Or I'll bring my assistant director or my director of photography and say, okay, I need a minute. This isn't working. How are we going to fix it? Do it away from everybody else so that they don't see the panic. And yeah, so they say, if it's something where you're like, this is a very serious shoot, we're going to take it very seriously, your crew will read that, pick up on that, and act the way you are acting. So make sure you decide what you want that tone to be, and then project it so that everyone else can feed off of it. I also just wanted to kind of go back to the know your limits. Extras, period pieces, and locations are the three. I don't want to say, they're the three challenges that I think a lot of first-time filmmakers don't realize when they begin making a film. And so they will make a film that is a period piece, or a film that has a bunch of complicated locations, or just a film that has a bunch of extras. And all of those things cost time, cost money, and can make your film feel too much. So those are things where you should always make sure, do I absolutely need this? And sometimes it's okay if you have a great idea for a film and you're like, I don't think I'm experienced enough to do this film yet. I'm going to do a simpler one first and then try a more complex one later. My first film had 2 actors, 1 location, and 12 shots. It took us about 6 hours to shoot it. And I see people now, back in my day, now I see all the new filmmakers want to make a Hollywood film in 10 minutes, and they fill it full of as much as they can, and it gets to be a lot. So I would recommend, for your first film in particular, keep it as simple as you can. Next up, I have the producer and the production manager. So on an independent shoot, quite often the director is also the producer, and there isn't always a production manager. As someone who has been a director 9 times and who has been a production manager probably at least that many times, I think it is so valuable having somebody help you in pre-production with your shoot. And I'll get into this a little bit with the assistant director as well, but the director is the creative mind behind the project. They're the I don't know, they're the energy. The production manager or the producer can be the logic. So sometimes, because I've had moments where I've been very emotional about my project because it's my project and I love it and I want it to be great. And so sometimes I can't focus on the hard stuff. I don't want to be focusing on the logistics and the food and the are we on schedule. I want to be talking to my actors and looking at the shot and making sure it works. So having somebody in your corner to be the logic while you're being the emotion is so key. So I cannot stress enough having somebody in this position, especially if you're a first-time filmmaker. But I've been doing this for, I don't know, 15 years, and I still need somebody like this on my shoot. So I think it's very important to have somebody in this role. So they, like I said, they're the person that runs pre-production. They manage the logistics of your pre-production, which is things like organizing food, organizing transportation, organizing your locations and your casting, helping you hire your crew. Sometimes they'll help you manage your budget. A lot of the times the budget is as little as possible, but sometimes you actually have a cash amount and you're trying to stay within it. Advice for people who want to be a production manager or a producer: make sure that you communicate with the department heads so that you know what everybody needs, because the producer's job is not to do everything, but it's to make sure that everything gets done. So you need to check in with the camera department and the lighting department and the actors and the director and the assistant director and make sure that everything is happening. Also, it's a good idea to break down the script. So when you get a script, there are many different ways that you can break it down, but that basically just means going through scene by scene and making a list of everything that's in it. So how many actors are in this scene? What are the props? What are the special effects? What are the, I don't know, how many extras do we need? Do we need a prop car? And so that you know everything that you need for each scene so you can make sure that everything is looked after. Being as familiar with the script and what is required as possible for the producer and the production manager is very important. And the third thing I will say is pick the right crew. And I say the right crew because that doesn't just mean getting a big crew. It doesn't necessarily mean getting a small crew. It means assess the project, determine what the project needs, and then get the right people for that project. So I've worked on crews where there have been 4 people. I've worked on crews where there's been 25 people. And sometimes 4 people is enough, and sometimes it is not. So another thing that I take this very personally, and I hope that most filmmakers in the film community will feel this as well. But I've been doing this for a long time, and the reason that I have success is because I've had people mentor me and support me and teach me. So I think it's very important to have a balance of new and experienced crew members on your shoot, because everybody that joins the film co-op wants to make a movie, but if they don't have the experience, they're never going to be able to. So you might not want to get a brand new person as your director of photography, but you could probably get them in a role in that department. So maybe they could be the assistant camera instead, or if they really want to do sound, well, instead of having them be in charge of sound, have them work with the sound recordist. And then also figure out what you need. So like I was saying before, if you're doing a period piece and you have costumes coming from 3 different rental places, then you need a costume person to look after that. if you're filming at 17 different locations, you probably need a locations person. But if you're only filming in one place and everybody's wearing the one outfit, you probably don't need specialized people in those specific roles. So this is where breaking down the script comes in handy. And it's really important to find the balance between getting the people that you need and getting the right number of people and not having too many people, because if you have too many people, those are people that you have to feed that are sitting around doing nothing and they're bored. And both of those things are bad. So finding balance to the people that you want to have on your crew is very important. All right, lots of talking. I will move on to the assistant directors. All right, so the assistant director, this is what I usually do if I'm not directing myself. And so the first assistant director is the person, oh, sorry, hang on. My notes are all showing up. Okay, sorry. So the assistant directors, the first assistant director is the department head, and they are the person who runs the shoot during production, and they're the person who's responsible for the shooting schedule, which is what is being shot on what day in what order. And they also make the call sheets, which are the documents that you get before the shoot that tells you what time to show up, where to show up, if there's specifics about the location, if there's specifics about where to park, where the bathrooms are, where the first aid kit is, what the weather's going to be, basically everything that you need to know to show up on set on time and know what you're doing that day will be on the call sheet. I will talk about this again later, but it's important enough that I will mention it here. When you get a call sheet, read it and then read it again and know what's on it. Because the worst thing you can do is show up and ask the assistant director something that is on the call sheet, because they are very busy and they don't have time. They spent hours making the call sheet, so you know everything, so you have everything you need. So if you have a question, read the call sheet first, then ask the AD if it's not there, because that is what the call sheet is for. Other members of the assistant director team could be the third assistant director, who usually manages extras, or if there's large casts, they might be involved in moving actors back and forth between hair and makeup and wardrobe and to set. The second assistant director, which this is something that confuses people, because sometimes you will have a first and sometimes you will have a first and a third, but you might not have a second, which is confusing. But the second assistant director on a larger scale production is usually the person that does all of the paperwork. So they're the ones making sure everybody has the right script for the day. They're the ones that do the call sheets. They're the ones that do all of the whatever little bits of paperwork need to be done. And I've never worked on a co-op shoot that had 3 assistant directors. It just doesn't happen. It's not, usually a co-op shoot is maybe 2 weekends. It's usually pretty short, so you don't need a person who is just doing paperwork. Advice that I have for assistant directors: 1, be assertive, but don't be mean. I've seen a lot of people talk about assistant directors having the reputation of yelling and being angry, and they're no fun, and they just want to make everyone's day miserable. That is not true. The assistant director wants everybody to have the best possible time and to be on time and make sure that everything is going well. So if you're the assistant director, you are the boss. You tell people what needs to happen, and they are supposed to listen. But you don't have to be a jerk, especially when it's never okay to be a jerk, but it's especially not okay to be a jerk when everybody there is probably your friend. They're probably working for free, and none of them are trained professionals. So don't be a jerk. Another thing to do is make sure that you check in with everybody. check in with your camera department and your lighting department and your director. Make sure your director's okay. Make sure the actors are okay. But also check in with like your production assistants and your grips and your sound people. Like, you are responsible for literally everybody. So check in with literally everybody. I directed a film and assistant directed a film about a month apart, and I realized when I was the director, I only talked to like 3 people. But when I was the assistant director, I talked to literally every single person on my set. So you should know what everybody's doing and make sure that everybody's on time and that everything is going well for everybody, not just the department heads. And the third thing to keep in mind as an assistant director is scheduling is an art, not a science. There is no algorithm to do a schedule. Schedules change all the time. Typically, when I'm doing scheduling, I try to put locations together. I try to put actors together. I try to do longer scenes first and smaller scenes second. When you take an assistant director workshop, you will probably learn more specifics about what a shooting schedule should look like. But the basis of it, the basics of it is there's no right way to do it. And so sometimes you will do a schedule and then something will change and you will have to move things around and you have to be prepared to do that. But it is definitely an art and a learned skill rather than there is a formula that you follow every time that always works. Also, just a quick thing, the assistant director is the person who yells, who calls the roll. So they will call for, when the director says we're ready to shoot, they will call for finals, which means every department head comes in and signs off on the shot. So the director of photography will sign off on it, the lighting person will sign off on it, production designer will check like hair, makeup, wardrobe, everything good, sound is good. Once everybody's ready, then the director or the assistant director will call quiet on set and roll the camera and sound. And this is where the slate will happen. And then when the cinematographer says they're ready to go, the director will call action, and then the director will call cut. And then the assistant director will check in with the director. Was that good? Are you happy? Check in with camera, check in with sound. If everybody's happy, you can move on to the next thing. If somebody is not happy, you go again. And then that is how that sort of works. All right. Next, we have the camera department. So you've heard me mention this already, but the head of the camera department is the director of photography, sometimes also called the cinematographer, also sometimes called the DP or the DOP. There's a lot of abbreviations on a film set, so it's a good idea to learn those because otherwise people will just be yelling a bunch of letters at you that you don't know what they mean. But yeah, so the director of photography is the chief over the camera and lighting crews, and they're responsible for making artistic and technical decisions related to the image. So quite often the director of photography will have a say in what camera you use, what lenses you use, what filters you use, what the shot list looks like, and what the lighting design works like. And that will always be done in conjunction with the director because the director is the boss, but the director of photography will quite often be the technical lead of the scene as far as what the image looks like. Other people that are involved in the camera department could include a camera operator. So sometimes the director of photography doesn't run the camera themselves. They have someone else do it because they're looking at other things for other reasons. Or sometimes you'll be using multiple cameras. So the director of photography will run a camera, but then they will have somebody else running the second camera. Another person is the assistant camera, which will do any reporting that needs to be done. They will also do the slate, and they will also help with things like lens changes and filter changes and that sort of thing. And then there's also the digital imaging technician, which is the person who essentially dumps the footage. So when you shoot digital, it's usually put on like a media card. When the card gets full, it needs to be transferred onto a hard drive so that the hard drive can be given to the editor. You don't always have a designated person for that on an independent shoot because the shoot might only be a day or two, so you might be able to fit everything on one card. But at some point in the shoot, somebody needs to be responsible for dumping the footage, and it's almost never the director. So usually someone in the camera department will look after that. Other things that are responsibilities of the camera department are, like I said, the camera reports, the slate, the lens changes, also the tripod. Sometimes you have to adjust the tripod up and down or different things. And sometimes, especially with digital, more people are using monitors. So you can see, rather than looking at the camera, you can look at the monitor somewhere else. So everybody's not crowding the DP. So the camera department will set that up as well. The advice I have for people in the camera department: one, never leave the camera unattended. It is almost always the most expensive thing you have on your shoot, and you don't want anything to happen to it. So there should always be somebody with it. So usually the camera department will eat meals in shifts. So somebody's always sitting with the camera. Also, the assistant camera should be with the DOP all the time. The DOP will always need a lens. They might need a lens or a filter or the camera or the tripod adjusted. The assistant camera should always be right there. And they should always have the slate ready. The number of times that we have started to shoot and realized we didn't have the slate ready, I could probably make another movie with the time that we spent looking for the slate. And the continuity person is the person who tracks what is put on the slate. So the continuity person and the assistant camera should always be talking to each other to know what the slate is supposed to say. And if the slate is incorrect for some reason, the continuity person will need to make sure that they have that ready. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far? I feel like I've been talking a lot. All right, I'll move on. The lighting department. So the head of the lighting department is called the gaffer, and they report to the director of photography and the first AD. And the other people in the lighting department are called grips. And that just means they hold stuff and move stuff. And they're just kind of they're probably the hardest working people on set because they're always doing stuff. But their jobs are to set up lights, run extension cords. They will deal with bounces and flags. They'll be using gels. They set up the dolly. They set up the jib or any specialty equipment. They are always working. You should always, always, always thank your grips because they work really hard. And they're probably the most physically tired by the end of the day. So you should always, always thank your grips. And then I guess also too, sometimes there isn't, again, on an independent shoot, there might not be a gaffer. Your director of photography might take the role of gaffer as well. So in that case, the grips would report to the DP rather than the gaffer. Advice for the lighting department: they're probably the ones that are most concerned with safety because they're the ones that are dealing with the most dangerous equipment. Not that it's dangerous by itself, but it can be dangerous if it's not used properly. So it is safe. You always have to make sure that you tape down extension cords so that people don't trip over them. You have to make sure that you put sandbags on lights so the lights don't get knocked over. You want to make sure that if you have lights that are hanging from the ceiling, that they're double secured so that they don't fall on anybody. Always wear good shoes. If you're filming inside, you probably will want to have a pair of indoor shoes, but you should always have good, proper shoes. Never grip in flip-flops. That's an accident waiting to happen. And if any of you have ever been on a film set, you probably have heard this, but if you are turning on a light, you should always announce it so that nobody is looking at the light when the light is turned on. So people will yell sparking or flashing or something. There's different terms that different people use, but if somebody said, if one of your lighting department announces that they're turning on a light, don't look at the light, because they're telling you so that you don't. And the number of times where somebody is called that they're turning a light on, and then somebody goes, what? And they look at it. They're very bright, and you don't want to look at it. It's just not good. So always do that. Next up, we have the sound department. So sometimes the sound department will just be a single person. Sometimes it will be two. But the head of the department is the sound recordist. They're the ones that record the sound. And the other members are the boom operator, who operates the boom. So they're pretty self-explanatory with their job descriptions. But basically the sound department records, they record sound. It's not complicated to describe, but it's really complicated to do. Getting good sound is so important. I'm married to a sound editor, so I know this. Location sound is so important. So everybody else needs to be aware of this. And if you are doing sound, you are always, always, always within your rights to ask for another take for sound. Also, so the sound department needs to make sure that they're always on standby, because what happens a lot of time on a shoot is the light crew will spend 2 hours setting up lights, and then the camera department will come in, and the director will come in, and the actors will come in, and they'll talk, and they'll and they'll ha, and then they'll say, yep, we're ready to go. Okay, let's go. And if the sound person isn't there immediately ready to go, then it's like, oh, we're waiting on sound. And it's, it's become a running joke, but the sound person should be there on standby and ready to go, so that when everybody else is ready, they just sneak in and do their thing. Sometimes it's becoming, the Film Co-op has acquired recently new lav mics, which are the mics that like attach to somebody's clothes, and they're hidden on the actor. So we have more sets of them, so they're being used more regularly on shoots. Always, 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 always respect your actors. Don't just grab them and start sticking your hand up their shirt and, sticking a microphone to their chest. Learn how to teach someone how to put on a lav mic, because somebody might not be comfortable with you touching them. So you have to be able to explain to them how to do it without invading their space. Especially because, like I said, most of the people that you work with aren't professionals. They haven't done this very many times, and they might not be comfortable with having crew members, grabbing them and stuff. So make sure you know how to use a lav mic. Make sure you know how to teach someone how to put on a lav mic. And then don't be afraid to ask for a frame line. So if you have a boom, that thing can be, well, as you can see from the picture, it can be quite long and quite unwieldy. And if you don't know where the top of the frame is, it's really easy to drop into frame. And then you wreck the take, and you don't want to be the person that's doing that. So ask. It's always okay to ask. And sometimes you will think that you have a frame line, and then everybody looks at the monitor and you realize that you don't. So it's always okay to double check this, because it's way better to spend time and do the take again because the boom is in the shot than it is to be in the editing room and realize that the boom is in all of your shots and you can't use anything that you have. And like I said, don't be afraid to ask for another take. If the sound is terrible, you know, there's an airplane going through it, or motorbike, or people mow their lawns. It seems like every time you call action, and then everybody in the neighborhood starts their lawnmowers at the same time. When you're doing sound, always say, I would like to do it again because the sound is bad. Or I would like to wait and not do it right now until the sound stops, because having clean sound for the edit is so important. And if you don't get it on your first try, then you're rebuilding it from scratch. And that is so hard to do. So never, ever, ever be afraid to stand up for yourself and say, nope, I need to go again. Art department. So art department they kind of are broken down into a bunch of different categories. Sometimes there will be one person that's responsible for the whole thing. Sometimes there will be many people involved. The art department probably fluctuates the most in size depending on what your project is. So the head of the department is called the production designer or the art director. On a professional shoot with a big crew, the production designer is the department head and the art director reports to the production designer. But on a short film, people use the terms interchangeably, so it doesn't really matter. And like I said, sometimes they're the only one in a department and they look after all of it. Other people that could be involved are hair, makeup, wardrobe, props, set deck, and special effects. Whether that's special effects, makeup, practical special effects, different things. Advice for people in the art department: planning goes a long way. Know the script, know what you need, get everything beforehand. If you know what you need, then you're not looking for stuff on the day. And some things that directors write into their scripts are really weird and really hard to find. So it's good to know up front any of the complicated things that you're going to need to look for. Also, stay within your budget. If the producer or the director tells you this is what your budget is, don't go over budget. That's just rude. Always work with the locations. So if you know where you're filming and you can get in there early, look at what's there and use what's there. If you're filming in a restaurant, ask them if you can use their dishes so you don't have to bring your own dishes. If you're filming in a dorm room, like I filmed in this one, use the layout to your advantage. I've seen it where we've been filming in a garage and somebody just picked up a bunch of cans of paint, moved them into the shot, and it made the shot look cooler. So use whatever you have at the location and then just build on it rather than trying to build everything from scratch. And always look at the monitor, because you know what it looks like to you, but you don't know what it looks like to the camera. And the director of photography and the art director are probably the two people that are most responsible for how the film looks. And the director of photography is always looking at the monitor, so they know what it's going to look like. You need to make sure that your good stuff makes it into the frame. Sometimes you might have to shift something, you know, if you have a plant and you want the plant to appear in the shot, you might have to cheat it over so that you can see it. But make sure that all of the art department that you make ends up on frame or in frame, because that's what sells the world, is what is put there by the art department. So, and again, this is an area too where you need to make sure you have the right number of people. If you have, I worked on a film once where we had, I think, 6 females that appeared on camera, and they were all like party girls at the club, done up all fancy. And we had one makeup person, and she was like, it's going to take me 20 minutes per person times 6. That's how much time it's going to take us before we can have them ready for camera. So we brought in a second makeup person for just that scene to help her get everybody ready. Or if you are doing, like I said, if you're doing a period piece where you've got costumes coming from 3 different rental places, have costume people, have multiple costume people. But if you don't need them, don't have them. And it's all about balance. But I think art department is where people sometimes drop the ball and don't bring in as many people as they need. So talk with your production designer and ask them, how many people do you need? And they'll usually tell you. So next up, we have continuity and the editor. So a lot of people have misconceptions about what continuity does on a shoot. Their primary job is to be the editor's representative. They're there to make sure that you get coverage of all of the lines, you get coverage of all of the actions, and that the movie will cut together with the footage that you have. Their secondary job is to be backup continuity for everybody else. But art department is responsible for their own continuity. Art department is responsible for making sure that the glass is filled to the right level and that the person is wearing the right shirt and all of those things. That is art department. Continuity will back that up, but they are primarily there to make sure that the editor has what they need to edit the film at the end of the day. Usually there's only one person in this department, and they will talk almost exclusively to the director and the assistant director and the assistant camera to make sure that the slate is right. So if you want to be good at continuity, learn how to edit, because if you know what an editor needs, then you know what to ask for as a continuity person. Also, you should probably know the script better than anyone, because you're the one that has to make sure that everything is said correctly and that you get all of the right story beats. Write down everything, because then you can say, I didn't write it down, it didn't happen. Communicate with the director and the director of photography and stay near the monitor. Because again, whatever's happening outside of the frame doesn't matter. You need to make sure everything is captured on camera. So always stay near the monitor, and don't be afraid to say, I need to stay next to the monitor, because a lot of times everybody wants to stand next to the monitor. They want to watch the filming happen, but the person that should be there, director is number one, continuity is number two, and everybody else, they can get in, get their look at their finals and then get out, but the continuity person has the right to be there all the time. And don't be afraid to say that, because again, sometimes some of the bigger personalities will be like, oh, I want to see. And it's like, no, I have to see. This is my job. Get out of my way. But be nice, because just be nice. Last couple of things as far as departments go, I have logistics. So again, a lot of the time this will fall on the director or the producer or the production manager. But sometimes there will be specific people for specific jobs. So locations and craft services. Locations, always get your location agreements in writing. That way there is no room for confusion. You know what time you have the location. You know what time to be there. You know who your contact is. You know how you're getting in, whether it's you're getting a key or someone is going to meet you there, or it's open, you're there during business hours, so the door will be open. Also, they'll give you any information about where people can park, where people can do hair and makeup, where you can't go. And also, a lot of times you'll be filming in people's homes. So you'll want to make sure that, they'll say, well, don't wear shoes in the house, or I have a cat, don't let my cat out, or don't go in my kids' rooms. Like, they'll tell you which parts of it are off limits, where you're allowed to go, and that way there's no confusion and you can have a good relationship with the people that you're using their location, because locations can make or break your film. I've had so many films almost not happen because my locations didn't work out. Locations are so important, and especially because most of the time people are letting you into the space for free or for very cheap. you want to make sure that you treat it with respect, because you're not only representing yourself, you're representing literally every single filmmaker in the province of New Brunswick. And if you burn a bridge, no one else will ever be able to use that space again. And finding space is hard. So if you can build a good relationship, then that's good for everybody. Before any work starts, you should always take pictures of everything. Before anybody touches anything, take pictures of the whole room, take pictures of a shelf and how the shelf is arranged, take pictures of where furniture is, because then when you move at the end of it all, you can put everything back. And it's better if you can leave it in better shape than when you found it. This goes on to the next one, keep it clean. The locations person, whether that's the production manager, the producer, or a designated locations person, is responsible for keeping the space clean. So bring Lysol wipes and rags and soap and garbage bags and everything you can think of. And make sure you take your garbage with you. Unless they tell you, like, no, you don't have to. Like, I filmed in a bar once, and they always brought cleaners in to clean the whole space before they opened that night. So we were filming during the day, and they said, no, you don't have to worry about it. So we didn't do a deep clean, but we still made sure we took all of our stuff with us, and we made sure we took our garbage with us when we left. And then this is something that I don't think enough people do. Follow up with your locations after you're done. Reach out to them a week later and just say, hey, I wanted to say thank you for letting us film there. Hope everything went well. Because sometimes things will go bad and you won't notice that they were bad until after the fact. So it's always a good idea to reach out to them and just say, hey, is everything good? Did we miss anything? Is there anything that you have problems with that we need to resolve? Because stuff happens. Things get broken. Things get damaged. It happens. If you're upfront with it, usually that's okay. But sometimes things get missed. And so it's a good idea to reach out after the fact and just say thank you and make sure that everything is still okay. Craft services is the most important thing. Most important thing. Most important thing. If you remember nothing else that I have said in this whole hour, craft services is the most important thing. If you don't feed your crew, they will be angry and they will never work with you again. And I'm only half kidding. It is the most important thing. You want to make sure that you have hot meals as well as cold meals, depending on the situation. And snacks, handheld portable snacks are always good. Work with the assistant director to schedule the best times for meals, so you have to feed the least number of people. If you know that you're going to have 30 extras, maybe have lunch and then have the extras show up so you don't have to feed them. That's a cost-saving thing as much as it is anything else. Always be aware of dietary restrictions and allergies. Always make sure you have water. Always make sure you have coffee. If you don't have coffee, people will leave to go get coffee. And when you're behind schedule, that is not good. So always have coffee. And have other drinks as well. I usually only have water and coffee except for at mealtime, but it is nice to have other things besides just water and coffee all day. Make sure everybody eats. When I'm the assistant director, I always go last to make sure that everybody else has eaten. But I've been on sets before where the actors will be dismissed first and they will eat and then they will have seconds. And then the assistant camera who had stayed back with the camera will not get any food. So always make sure that everybody eats. And props are not craft services. If you have food that appears on camera, when you're done with it, you can eat it, but it should not be included as part of your craft services. It should be a separate thing. I've seen that happen where somebody brought in a pizza that appeared on camera and the actors ate it, and whatever was left over was lunch for the crew. So the actors ate a ton of pizza, and then the crew got almost nothing. So props are not craft services. I just realized it's 8 o'clock, so I'm going to try to speed this up. I've only got a couple more slides. Location, logistics, transportation, and first aid. As far as transportation goes, make sure everybody has a way to set, cast and crew. Sometimes you might have to send somebody to go pick people up. Sometimes you might have to pay people for gas money, but make sure that everybody has a way to set. You can't move gear in uncovered vehicles. So if you have like a pickup truck, you can't put gear in it, because if it rains or snows or is windy, something might blow out of your truck. It needs to be covered or enclosed. And I recommend getting a designated gear vehicle. I always get a U-Haul every time. It's not that expensive, and it's a really easy way to keep all of your equipment together and make sure nothing gets lost. For first aid, it's always a good idea to have some over-the-counter medicine. Allergy medicine is key, because when your actors have an allergic reaction to the cat that is sleeping on my bed, then all of a sudden the actor can't act anymore because they're all congested, and I've seen it happen where it has taken like an hour for the actor to get composed again because they're all red and puffy because of the allergic reaction. So over-the-counter allergy medicine is really smart. Also Tylenol and cold medicine and other things. Have a well-stocked first aid kit on set. Make sure that it's refreshed before you go to set, and always have somebody who's first aid trained on set. It happens way more often than, even if everybody is super, super careful, there's always a chance that somebody could get hurt. So make sure you have somebody first aid trained on set. So now I just have some general things. Be on time. If you're late and they need you to be there to start, people will remember that. It's not polite. It will delay the whole day, and you will probably not have a good reputation, and you might have difficulty getting hired again if you're not on time. Be prepared. So this means a couple of different things. Be prepared. Make sure that you have training. If you're handling equipment, make sure that you've been trained on the equipment. If you haven't used the equipment in a long time, go in for a refresher. I don't remember how this camera works. I'm going to go in to the co-op and spend an hour going through the camera, making sure I know how it works. Make sure that you have all your workshops that you need for the different roles that you're doing. Also be aware of whatever consumables you need. So if you are the assistant camera, you might need markers for the slate. If you're doing sound, you might need batteries. You're not necessarily responsible for paying for all of your own consumables, but you should know what you need. And the more you do a specific job, the more you will know what you need. And I would recommend building your own kit. So for example, I assistant direct a lot. I have a box about, well, you guys can't see, but I have about a 30-centimeter box full of pens and paper and tape and a sewing kit and a mini first aid kit, and everything that has ever come up on a set that I'm like, hey, we might need this. I chuck it in there. So I have it all. So if you need something to do your job, make sure that you have it, or tell somebody that you need it so they can get it. Be prepared for the weather. Make sure that you have appropriate clothing. Make sure you have bug spray or sunscreen. Make sure you have proper footwear. If you can, bring your own coffee mug, bring your own water bottle, always bring your own pen, because you'll always need a pen and nobody ever brings their own pen. And bring your own chair if you can, because there's never enough places to sit. So if you have a folding chair, just bring it with you to set. Be informed. So this comes back to make sure you read the script. Even if you don't need to know the script super well for your job, read the script anyway, just so you at least know what is going on. Plus, there are things that you might learn about, like maybe the script is violent and you weren't aware that it was violent, or maybe there's something in it, in the subject matter, that is triggering to you that you didn't know, and then you show up on set and you're like, I can't be here, this is not what I want to know. It's good to know that before you commit to a project. So I always say read the script before you even commit to doing a project, but you should read the script before you show up. Also, read the call sheet and read your emails, because the assistant director, the producer, the production manager will be emailing you and asking you stuff and asking you to confirm that you've seen the information. And the number of people that don't read their emails is infuriating. So read your emails and read the call sheet. Be ready to go. So I talked about this with some of the other departments. If you don't know what you should be doing, be near set so that if somebody needs you, they can say, I need somebody to go grab this. You can be like, got it, and go. And when they're ready to shoot and you need to be standing by, be there. And be quiet, especially when the assistant director calls quiet on set. Don't talk, eat, drink, move, make absolutely no sound. They can hear you chewing gum. Don't make any sounds until the director calls cut. And don't talk during slating. A lot of the time people will call quiet and then they'll start getting ready to slate, and then all of a sudden people start talking again. And then the slate is there to sync the camera with, or the image with, the sound. And if you talk over it, it just messes that up. So don't talk during the slating. And in general, keep your voice down. The director needs to be talking to the actors. They need to be focusing. People are working. And if you're not working, you can chat, that's fine, but keep your voice down so that you're not distracting to the people that are working at that point. And my last slide, just a few more general tips. Respect the chain of command. The director's the boss. Don't fight with the director. The assistant director is also the boss. Don't fight with them either. Know who you're supposed to talk to about things and don't overstep. Know your role, know your place. So know what your job is, what is expected of you, what you're supposed to be doing, and do that, and don't do anything else. Don't touch things that aren't yours. This is especially important for equipment. Don't touch the camera unless you're in the camera department. Don't touch the lights unless you're in the lighting department. It's not safe. It can lead to things getting broken. If you're not trained, bad things happen. So but also don't move somebody's coat. Don't move somebody's drink. Like, if it needs to be moved, find out who it is and get them to move it themselves, because the amount of time that we've spent looking for things that people couldn't find because somebody else moved it is more than it should be. So don't touch things that aren't yours. Don't interfere with a hot set. So once the camera is set up and you know what the set is going to be, don't touch it. Don't put things down. Don't move things, because you don't know, you might interfere with continuity. If they film something and the pillows are a certain way, and then you go in and you pick up the pillows and move them around, then they're going to mess up the next shot. So once the set is locked and considered hot, don't touch it. Again, don't touch equipment you aren't trained to handle. This is important for insurance purposes, for safety purposes, and just politeness. Just don't touch things that aren't yours. And last note is with actors. Actors are part of the team, but they are different than people. They are different than crew members. They are doing a different job. They have a different approach. They need a different space. So make sure, give them space, give them respect. Don't talk about them behind their backs. Don't laugh at them. If they're trying to do a really serious scene, don't be off in the corner cracking jokes and distracting them. Don't watch them when they're performing unless it's part of your job. Some actors get really nervous when they have like 35 people staring at them. So if it's not your job to watch them do it, don't. Look somewhere else. Nice. And but yeah, actors, I said this earlier, they're wonderful. and magical, and they breathe so much life into film, and you need to make sure that you give them the space and the respect that they deserve and that they need to do these performances, because sometimes they go to some really dark places to bring out this really authentic, beautiful emotion or humor or fear or all of these different things, and you need to make sure that you give actors respect. And that is it. No one knows what they're doing. So if you don't know what you're doing, that's okay, because nobody knows what they're doing. So I went over a little bit, but I don't have anywhere to be. So if people want to ask me questions, I will answer all of your questions. You can unmute and ask questions now if you want to. Or you can put them in the chat if you don't want to ask them. Somebody has their hand up.
Hi, that's me,
Hi.
Thomas. Hey, yeah, I guess I'll just level. My question is like pretty basic. I have no experience in film at all, but really interested in it, and moved to Fredericton a few months ago, and really just looking to get more involved in the film scene here. Just wondering what would be like a good first step for someone like me with like no experience in how to get more involved. I actually just signed up for the MB Film Co-op as a membership, so thanks for that. Really good presentation. So
Oh, good.
that was yours. Thank you for that. So
all right. Well, this is a hard question right now because COVID is kind of throwing a wrench into everything.
fair enough. Yeah.
I would say 1, take workshops. 2, if there's something specific that you want to learn to do, try to shadow somebody on a shoot. Usually there's a production calendar with all of the productions that are happening in a year. So you can reach out to the director and be like, hey, I'm new. I'm looking to learn about lighting, or I'm looking to learn about sound. If you're looking to get into acting, just go to auditions. That's an easy way to do it. Not everybody does auditions, but a lot of people will do call and even like do background stuff, like go be an extra. So a story with that, a guy I know came out to be an extra. He ended up being in our 48-hour film that we shot like a couple weeks later. And then he went on to win Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor for 2 different roles at Silverwave like a couple of years later. So doing something small can lead to something big, and don't ever feel like it won't, because it can. And the best thing you can do is get to know people. So that's the thing.
That's great. And what's your opinion on formal education? Sorry, that's just my last question. Is it good to have like a university education, like in like film or technical education? Like, could someone go in, like I have no educational background in film. Would that be a problem? Like,
I went to university and studied film. I learned probably more being on co-op shoots than I did in school. However, in school, I learned that I wanted to make movies. So I will never say that education is a bad thing, but I also know you learn so much just being on set. And co-op shoots are great because they're short. So you go through the whole process, but instead of it being you go through the whole process for a feature that takes 3 years to do, you do it over 2 weekends, and then you do another one, and then you do another one. So I say I've worked on like 77 projects in the last 15 years. I've learned so much being on set because every time you do a short film, it's different. And the genre changes, the number of people you're with change, the people you work with change, and you learn more about working with different people. So I don't think it's necessary. There are some things that it will probably be more beneficial if you have the technical experience. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like with something like some of the technical stuff, like maybe editing, it might be good to take formal courses on how to do it, because there's a lot of stuff involved that you might not be able to pick up without the education, but I don't think you need it.
Thank you very much.
Also, another way to get involved is join a 48-hour team. We have the 48-hour film competition. Usually it's in the fall, I think. And you make a film in 48 hours and you learn so much doing that. It's ridiculous. And you meet people and you can get latched onto other people's projects from that. So when it rolls around, join a team, because there's always people that are looking for people. And sometimes there are people that are looking for a team, and then enough of those people come together and form a team. So
That's awesome. Are all these opportunities on the MB Filmmaker Co-op website? Any other websites that you'll kind of have these?
they'll be promoted through the film co-op. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yes, Brittany, hey, question. So basically my question is, what advice do you have for someone that is looking to direct a film like myself?
Okay. Just in general or about anything in specific?
Well, in general, but also like in specific terms.
Okay. So surround yourself with people that know more than you do. I always try to have like, okay, so I am a writer and an actor's director. I don't know anything about camera. I don't know anything about sound, and I don't know anything about lighting. So I make sure that I have good people on my lighting team and my camera team. So I can say, I don't know, I want it to look sunny and happy. And then they go, okay, that'll be a blah blah lens and a blah blah light. And I'm like, perfect, do that. And then they set it up and it looks great. If you're technical, but you don't have the experience with art department, have a good art department. You know, I mean, always you want to have a good team, but I guess the most important thing is to have a good team and have them fill the gaps that you know that you have about yourself. And if your gaps are everything, then have everybody there know more than you.
All right.
And don't be afraid to make a decision, because when you're directing, all you do is just make decisions all day. And if you are standing there and somebody says, so do you like the red shirt or the blue shirt? And you can't decide, then that will waste time. And you are making decisions all day about literally everything. So learn how to be confident in making decisions, because if you make the wrong decision, you can fix it. But if you don't make a decision, then everything is out of your control and then you can't fix it later.
Right, of course, because it's important in a shoot to make decisions on the spot and not make a decision like afterwards, because then it'll be too late.
Exactly. I've been on sets before where they waited too long and then the decision was taken away from them and then it ended up being the wrong thing. So learn how to be confident in making decisions.
All right, awesome, thanks.
You're welcome.
Hey, so I have a question on how you assemble your teams. Like, I haven't gotten really to work on any film co-op project yet. But like as a director, like you're obviously choosing who you're hiring for certain positions. And like as you're, more abundant in the community, you get to know like whose like specialties, you get to know everybody around. But say again, there was a new director that wanted to make a project, how would they go about finding people to fill out a crew?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. You could, depending on when you join, go to Silverwave, watch the films at Silverwave, see what you like, and then find out who made what. That's a really good way. I've seen so many people like pick their director of photography or their assistant director or their actors at Silverwave because they saw them in another project and were like, that was great, that is who I want. Also, the film co-op has for their members a e-news and a Facebook page, so you can advertise there. Say, I'm looking for a director of photography. This is my style. This is what I'm looking for. I want to do a Coen Brothers type film, or I want to do a Michael Bay type film, send me your demo reel and we'll talk. And sometimes you just ask around, start saying, like, who do you know? Because, like, if you know 3 people at the film co-op, well, ask them. Well, I'm looking for a DP. Who do you know? And they will all give you different people. And then you can reach out and say, hey, I'm making a film. This is the script. What do you think? Let's talk. Does that help?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, because presumably when you join the film co-op, you know at least one person, and her name is Kat LeBlanc. So, ask Kat. But if you know other people as well, they might know people. Or sometimes you might find a production manager, and that production manager will go, okay, this is who I know. These who I think would be a good fit. This is who I like to work with. Also, I guess this is something personal. I always want to work with people that I like, that I get along with, that we have fun together. There's some people, like, I take it seriously, but I don't take it super seriously. I want it to be fun. So I work with people that approach it the same way. I don't want people that are very serious and very focused all the time. I'm like, no, I want to have time to goof off and be silly, because we make movies because it's so fun. Like, so I want to have people on my shoot that are like that. So I will always pick someone who I get along with over someone who is super talented, but I don't get along with as well. But that's just my personal preference, because that's the other thing. You might say, I want the best. So you look at who won all the awards at Silver Wave last year and you pick those people. You say, I don't care if we have differing styles or different approaches. I just want to make something that I know is going to be high quality, and these are the best people. Or you pick the people that you're like, none of us know what we're doing, but we're going to have fun. And you find that balance of what you want your project to be and what you want your experience to be.
Fantastic advice. Thank you.
Hi, Brittany. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. My name's Anne. Thank you. This was a really wonderful presentation.
Great.
I'm also new in this kind of director role where I am essentially writing some sketch comedy that I want to film because it's really fun. And I was wondering if you had any advice where, like, kind of when I'm working with a group of people I love and that are really friends and are fun, and like when you put on that other, like the director hat, is there any like mantra or line that you remember from a mentor, that like advice of how to be both professional and fun? So people want, so it can be a sustainable project, really.
I mean, the mantra that I always say is Quentin Tarantino's, we're going again. Why? Because we love making movies.
Cool.
Because yeah, I say, like, nobody does this for any reason other than the fact that they love it.
Mhm.
Because the hours suck. It's really hard to get work. The money's not always good. No one ever gets famous. But
Yeah.
it's so much fun. And
Right.
everybody that does it loves it. So I think that's what I always go back to, is we do this because we love making movies. And when everybody's tired and cranky because you've been on set for 12 hours and you just want to go home, just remind everybody, we're making movies and this is awesome.
Right. Okay, so I guess keep the focus on the fun. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Especially when you're doing comedy.
Oh yeah.
Especially, like, I have done drama and comedy, but I much prefer doing comedy because it's just so fun. And you just laugh so hard on set, and it's just good. I love comedy.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Brittany.
Hello.
Hey, great performance. I mean, great presentation.
Thanks.
I guess I have one question about I know that you need to get certified to use different equipment at the co-op.
Mhm.
And how does someone go about that? Are there hands-on workshops these days? I know with COVID it gets more complex.
Yeah, it's complicated. Right now there aren't hands-on workshops, but I mean, I would say honestly your best bet is to reach out to Kathy and see if she could maybe do, like, I don't know if they're doing one-on-one training right now, maybe rather than having a whole bunch of people, maybe having people one-on-one, or Kat says there's some coming up on Zoom, which is not the same as hands-on, but, and hopefully things will get better and you'll be able to go in and have the hands-on experience. But I would strongly recommend, if you're using a camera for the first time in particular, lighting, you can learn how to use it and then kind of have other people around you that know what they're doing. But if with a camera, it's very important to be familiar with the specific camera.
Yeah, I suppose my main concern was, would there not be very many kind of roles available for me on set if I didn't have any like certification to use the equipment?
There's so many roles that I don't have training on almost anything. You could, if you want to do technical, then you kind of need technical experience. But I mean, you could do art department. There's like set building and props and wardrobe can be really fun. And then there's also like production design, or production management, assistant directing, script supervising. Yeah. I'm also seeing too, Kat is sending me messages. So also, not everybody lives in Fredericton, obviously, so that can be a challenge as well, because our equipment is physically located here. And we do have members that use our equipment. They come and get it and use it, and that is fine. But we also have members in different cities who have gear. So sometimes you might not use Film Co-op equipment, but we might have members in Moncton or St. John or wherever else that have equipment that they would be willing to work with you with as well. So we can set up arrangements where you can have introductions with these other members in other cities.
Alrighty, cool. I guess I got one other question. It's kind of a lot more, it's more tangential, but like, so Fredericton has the co-op as its little, I suppose as the major provincial filmmaking organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have links with other filmmaking organizations across Canada?
I'm sure that we could find some. I don't know any. I mean, there's the Atlantic Filmmakers Cooperative in Halifax, and there's one in PEI as well that I think they've changed their name, so I don't remember what they're called now. PEI, yes, Kat is saying we do for AFCOOP, which is in Halifax, we PEI and Toronto. So yes, we are hooked up to all of them. So
Just wondering. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. Also, I usually have it in my slide. Kathy, I'll tell Kathy to email everybody and give you all my contact information. If you ever have questions or need recommendations for people to hire for a shoot or anything like that, I'll get you all my my contact information so you can reach out. And I do have my Sparrow Hawk Productions company is on Facebook, and I'm constantly posting things like if I see casting calls or crew postings. Oh, there, that's me, Sparrow Hawk Productions. If you Google it, you'll find me. And yeah, I say I'll tell Kathy to send you all of the information. But I love mentoring. I love working with emerging and first time filmmakers, and so I've been doing this a long time. I know a few things. I've made a lot of mistakes, so I can help people not make mistakes that I have made. And yeah, I love working with filmmakers. So thanks for coming, everyone. It was lovely to see everyone's faces, and I hope to see all of your names in the credits at Silverwave in the future.